Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, joined by attorney Stephen Jessup, and we're going to talk about one of Stephen's success stories on a case against Sun Life Disability Insurance Company. And Stephen, in these cases, we like to talk about the background of the case, what we were able to do for the client, and then provide some tips for people who may be in a similar situation with Sun Life to help them secure their disability benefits for the future. So let's talk about the facts of this case and a little bit about the policy that was involved in this particular claim.
Okay, so on this one, this client was very young at age 37 when he contacted us, and an orthopedic surgeon suffering from ankylosing spondylitis, which is a rare type of arthritis. I think it's getting more and more popular. You see commercials for medications and things like that.
Not that rare.
Not that rare anymore, but not one of the common ones people have heard, like rheumatoid or psoriatic or osteoarthritis. So, had really strong objective findings of it, and as we know in orthopedic surgery, a very, very physically demanding job. So when he contacted...
And I wanted to back you up a second, because now when you said that, I remembered when we first spoke to this client, which was several years ago, because he's been a client and continues to be for many years. Being an orthopedic surgeon, he was worried about the diagnosis, saying, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, I deal with this, but how serious are they going to take this medical condition, and am I going to have enough evidence to prove that it's limiting me? And I'm 37 years old. Can I get approved for this? Because I have a lot at stake here.
Very much so, and at 37 as an orthopedic surgeon, you haven't really been in the nitty-gritty of practice and the ability to, really the financial, windfalls of that area of medicine. I mean, so many years of education and training and everything too. So he had concerns not only of, do I have a chance of getting approved, but also the regular concerns of what happens if something happens to me while I'm in the middle of a surgery and I can't. Now, he was part of a group, so there was other surgeons around, but he did have a lot of concerns, and being that young and thinking, oh my gosh, my financial well-being, all the time and money spent in medical school, all these things. But as we've always said too, and I don't think a lot of people realize, orthopedic surgery is very physically demanding. The way they have to move, patients, and then even the use of the instruments and the tools and all that stuff to during the process of surgery. So, he did have those concerns, but he had very good medical information. Unlike a lot of doctors, and I spoke to a different doctor client of mine earlier today, a lot of doctors tend to self-treat. Or they treat with colleagues without any formal anything, where he was trying to find ways to deal with the condition so he would be able to continue to work. He was exhausting everything possible because he has no intention or desire of wanting to file for disability.
And he had been treating for his condition for a couple of years already, I think, before he called us, which we also said raised a potential red flag because of the fact that the disability company says, well, look, you've been working with the condition. We haven't seen a reduction in what you were doing in the past, so why now are you looking to stop? And that was another issue we had to overcome.
Yeah, and that came too prior to the filing of it with the doctors, and the doctors have been telling him, this doctor's been saying, hey, maybe you should pull back and not do certain procedures, at least try, get more rest, take some time off. So there was the recommendation of that in his medical file prior to the filing of any disability claim, and he did get to the point where between the pain and trying to do the work day in, day out, he did have to start taking days and cutting back a bit so he could recover and continue to maintain some type of surgical schedule.
So I know he came to us saying, look, I got this policy with Sun Life, I have with another disability company, two other disability companies. I need someone to coordinate this whole thing for me. I need someone to be the voice with all of the companies. I need to make sure I'm maximizing the benefits on all the policies. And more importantly, I want to do what I can do and not necessarily give up my whole career. So what are my options, is what he basically said. So what were you able to do for him ultimately, and what has gone on over the history of this claim?
Yeah, this is one of those things that we see a lot with doctors. And sometimes, when we speak to, say a doctor calls and asks questions about the policy, think about filing, and they don't necessarily understand, what you can do with the policy. So under it, initially was a filing of a partial disability for reduction in work duties on account of the medical condition. Even with the reductions, and that claim was filed, Sun Life approved as other carriers approved. And then even with those reductions, though, he continued to have problems. At one point during the claim, he actually had to cease all surgical duties, basically going on total disability.
Okay, so let's talk about this difference first, because you brought up some terms that are very familiar to you, but not many people who are watching this. And you said partial, which is also known as residual, disability. So what was the first stage at residual disability, and what did he have to prove to be eligible?
So with respect to that, the partial or residual is unable to perform one or more of the material and substantial duties of your occupation. You're working, but you're suffering at least 20% loss of income. So you're working part-time. You're not doing as much, and because you're not, in his case, doing as many of these surgeries, especially more intensive surgeries that result in more, money for the surgery, he did experience that loss of income pretty drastically.
Okay, now he did lose the income here, but we do have, and that's an important component of a residual claim, that you have to lose income in order to be eligible, because his employer, this was a group policy. Correct. Some docs that we represent work for a hospital or another type of group, and their salary is X amount of dollars. And their employer may say, look, we're okay with you cutting back on what you were doing, we'll keep your salary the same. Had this doctor done that, sure, he would have been probably happy with that, he would have made a lot more money, but he wouldn't have been eligible for residual, even though that person cut their duties down because they didn't have that 20% loss of income. So many people, not many, but people call us and go, look, I cut back at my work, I did this, I did that, but we go, did you have a loss of income? And they say no. So the income component is also very important here. Yes, but he unfortunately did take a substantial hit because of the way his salary was structured was geared towards his performance.
Correct.
So he filed initially for the residual, and you were able, and did Sun Life accept that claim?
Correct. They did accept the claim. Their doctors obviously reviewed it in light of what his medical conditions were, the objective, evidence, MRIs, things like that supported it. And I think if he had been an internal medicine doctor, it would have been a much harder claim to prove. Right. But the physical nature of being a surgeon and that very real risk of patient safety, if you're so in pain and you're not able to, do things, you do pose more of a risk to the patient directly. It's much more in your face. So they did approve it. Eventually, like I said, he did have to go out on total disability, meaning he had to stop working altogether. And during the process while there, here's a guy that, again, he wants to work. I've always kind of, half joke that when it comes to medical professionals, when you get to the surgeons, those are like the fighter pilots, the elite guys. They're a different breed of doctor, and that's what they want to do. They want to work more so than I see in others. Like, they're very driven, very type A. He ended up having a neck surgery. It helped alleviate some of the problems he was having. And after that, and he was ecstatic. He thought his ability to practice medicine was done. He was able to get back to work, performing less intense surgery, so he is working. Even the doctors were like, if you want to, I don't necessarily recommend it. We think you can. He's like, no, I want to do what I can do. I want to continue to work. This is my life's goal, my life's career. I want to do it. So currently now he's also on he's back on partial disability with Sun Life. So you have a situation here where he started partial, approved, went to total, approved. On total disability, Sun Life's paying the entire monthly benefit. He decides, gets surgery, goes back, partial disability, so Sun Life is off the hook financially for a percentage of the benefit. But that still wasn't enough. Just recently, they had him undergo an independent medical evaluation.
Okay. So what is the point of the independent medical exam?
They basically wanted to have him examined by a doctor of their choosing. So sometimes they call it independent. We like to call it compulsory. And he had to go under the terms of the policy. And that's so a doctor can examine him to determine if medically necessary restrictions and limitations would be in place. Quite honestly, in discussing it with him, and we looked up had the name of the doctor, looked the doctor up, and in this situation, I think it's also very important when there's an IME request. This doctor had a practice, was a practitioner, wasn't someone who just only does these types of exams, and had that independent medical evaluation. Obviously, it was very much in his favor because Sun Life did say, we've got the results, we're continuing to approve disability benefits. And he told me afterwards, I said, listen, when you're done, call me, let me know how it goes. And he said even the IME doctor was like, honestly, I can't believe you're still able to even, do surgery with the severity of your condition.
Right, and so, but the takeaway from this is that we've been representing the client for many years. And you would think, here's a guy with a chronic disabling medical condition, that surgery it doesn't cure the condition, it helps to stop the bleeding per se. Goes back to work, after being out completely. And then Sun Life says, well, we're really not sure, like questioning his it's almost in a way, it's like insult his character, the validity of his complaints. Like, we don't believe you, or we're not sure, we're going to get another doctor, and maybe we'll find some quack doctor or something that can say, because if this doctor had said, I think you can, what was the doctor even, it's so ridiculous, what was the doctor going to say? No, you shouldn't, you should be doing full 40 surgeries a week instead of 20.
Exactly, like, oh no, I actually think you could do every surgical duty. It was really strange. That's why when there was a request, I was like, I scratched my head a bit, and talking with the client, same thing. We were kind of like, this is unusual, because what's he going to say? You can do every surgery?
Had he stopped and you were saying the story of, okay, we want to look at it, because that is a question we get all the time from any kind of client that we represent, is if I have surgery, will they assume I'm better and therefore I can go back and do everything I used to do?
Correct.
And so even in this case, the answer, we always tell clients, no, that's not the case. It's to stabilize you. It doesn't mean you go back and you have now the energy, the resources, the ability to go back and work the way you used to. When you go to surgery, you go because the pain is so bad, you can't tolerate it, that it's the last resort. And maybe you get back to a level that's manageable, but not manageable enough to go back to work. So people should not fear, don't go to surgery, because then they're going to cut your source of income.
Exactly. And you're right. If he had not gone back to work, then maybe the doctor could have assessed, do you think you could do some of these duties? So it was a weird request on it, but it turned out in his favor. But it goes to show, I guess, the lack of logic in the thinking.
Right.
And they're going to, especially under these ERISA policies, try to find any way, whereas opposed to his other policies, which are individual disability policy purchased on his own, that claims handling after everything's been established has been very quiet. We just send the required financial information for partial disability under those policies, and that's that.
Right, and so I know we continue to manage with all of the carriers. All the communications come to us. Nothing goes to him. Any requests that any of the disability companies want for medical records, financial information, and I know you have to send them his earnings every month. So it's a lot of work on an ongoing basis every single month. And I know the client feels very relieved that he doesn't have to deal with the claim. And he says, Stephen, take care of everything. Just tell me what I need to do medically and make sure the checks keep coming in every month. And that's the service we provide for many, many claims, not just with Sun Life, but with every disability company. So good success story. And I still remember when he called us, what's now 5 years ago, how nervous he was, because he was so young. And he's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And fortunately, I'm glad to see that he's still fighting and able to continue working in some capacity, and that he has these policies to pick up the difference in the lost income for him. So it's a great story. If you're someone who has a Sun Life long-term disability policy, feel free to reach out to Stephen or myself. No matter where you live in the country, we're available to help you. We always provide an immediate free phone consultation, and we would love the opportunity to discuss your claim with you. Hi, I'm Gregory Dell, the managing attorney of Dell Disability Lawyers, and I hope you find the video you just watched helpful. We put these videos out all of the time, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Beyond our videos on our YouTube channel, we also have lots of information available on our website at diattorney.com, and we encourage you to come to our website. The goal is that we want you to be educated about the disability insurance process, and when you get to our website, you'll see that we have information all about your specific disability insurance company, your occupation, and your medical condition. And we've designed our website such that you can easily search our website to find things that you may specifically be looking for. Now, at our website, we have thousands and thousands of pages of information, hundreds of videos that you can search, plus we're building a section of reviews of all the disability insurance companies, and we have the Ask Our Lawyer section where you can go ahead and ask us any questions that you may have. Now, we realize that you may not need us right now, but you may need us in the future to help you with your disability claim, and we think one of the best ways to keep in touch is by clicking the button below and subscribing to our channel. And most importantly, again, no matter where you live in the country, we're always available. Just go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to discuss your claim and let you know immediately if we can help you.